Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Side by Side Digital. I'm your host, Rebecca Shively. We've got a great episode lined up for you today. This month, we are talking about negotiations, and not just any negotiations, but how to negotiate with family. We know that running a family business comes with its own set of challenges, and we're here today to talk about how we can have better communication and negotiations to create win-win situations for everyone involved. We're joined by Allan Vyhnalek with the University of Nebraska Extension, who has a wealth of knowledge around this topic. Allan, I want to thank you for being with us today. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that very much. So I am Allan Vyhnalek. I work for the University of Nebraska, and I work with farm succession and transition. And part of that succession transition, obviously, is some kind of a family negotiation, if you will. So that's why this is a good topic for me to talk about. And I guess my qualification is that not only did I grow up on a farm, and there was a farm transition where my brother took over that farm, but in addition to that, I did actually go to a 4-day negotiation workshop out at Harvard University back about 4 or 5 years ago. And I want to bring some of that information to this discussion too. Here's how you get a hold of me. That's my phone number, that's my email address, and that's my website. And so you're welcome to get a hold of me anyway. Any of those methods are just fine. I know that if you call that phone number, that's to my office. And so I'm not in the office a lot because I'm out teaching or out doing stuff. So just leave a message. I'll get back to you because it does come to me no matter where I'm at with my cell phone and what's going on. Okay, so topics are how were we taught to negotiate? How are our parents taught to negotiate? What can good communications look like? How do we change the mindset to create that value to get to a win-win instead of a win-lose? And how do we deal with difficult people, especially when we deal with emotions, showing good appreciation, some of those things. You'll find out more about that as we get to it. So I don't want to spend much time on that. I want to get going. How often do we negotiate? We negotiate all the time. I mean, you got the used car salesman or the used tractor salesman there. You got for me, it's the grandkids. For some of you, the children, obviously. And I want a candy bar. I want a candy bar. I want a candy bar. And so are you going to be a good papa or are you going to be a mean papa? Are you going to get them a candy bar and I get them a candy bar? And more importantly, how do we negotiate with families when it comes especially to just coming up with a way to make that farm transition or succession start? Negotiation is simply a back and forth process designed to reach an agreement when you have both a shared and opposed views or issues. And that's just a simple definition for negotiation. Typically what's happened is, you let's say you're going to go buy a used tractor. At the top of the screen there, at the top of the slide, the used tractor salesman says, yeah, you're interested in that tractor? I'll sell it to you for $50,000. You at the bottom of the slide there on the left-hand side say, I tell you what, today, I'm in a hurry. I'll tell you what, right now, cash, $40,000. And the salesman goes, well, I can't do that, but you're a good guy. You've been a good customer. I can let you have it for 48. It's kind of today only, final offer. And then you get down to the second line from the bottom there and you go, well, I tell you what, I understand 40 is probably too low. How about 42? And then then there's always the threat to walk. The salesman says, I got other people to see. I got people to get you out of the country. Tractors are really hard to come by right now. You know what? I'll let you have it for 46. And you go, well, I got to go irrigate yet. I got to go get hay put up. I got cattle to start weaning. I got all kinds of stuff happening. But maybe I could just go as high as 44 because I do need a tractor. And then if you haven't haul around some more, you end up splitting the difference and getting it for 45,000. So let's demonstrate that with Rebecca. Will you be my volunteer, Rebecca? I think we talked about that you could do this. Are you there with me?
Yep, I'm here.
Very good. So I'm trying to figure out how to look at you. I have my screen show. I won't worry about that.
That's all right.
So Rebecca, I'm going to sell you a widget and you're going to try and buy a widget. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I've actually been in the market for a widget lately.
You come into my store. It's a retail store on Main Street, USA, and you need a widget, and I sell widgets. Okay, so hey, Rebecca, what are you looking for today?
Yeah, I'm actually in the market for a widget. Got a need for that on my operation. What kind of things do you have in stock?
I have the latest and greatest widget right over here on the shelf. I have several of them. You can pick whichever one you want. And I tell you what, today and today only, I'll let you have a widget for $20.
Oh, I was kind of looking around on Amazon. It looked like they're running more like 10. Like, is that Is that the best you can do, or a little wiggle room on that? Any sales going on?
So the Amazon thing's kind of interesting because there's no service that comes with that. There's no backup to the sale. I mean, you're going to work with a local dealer here, and that's worth something to you. I know it has to be. And even though you don't want to admit it, even though you get free shipping if you're an Amazon member, it still costs you something. You got to pay that membership fee. So, but listen, I tell you what, I could probably let you have it for 17.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, money's really tight right now, and inflation, the economy, there's just a lot going on. Is there any way you can do better on that?
Well, what do you offer me?
I mean, I can meet you kind of part way. We'll go like 12.
Well, listen, Rebecca. I think we can probably do, but I just need to do just a little bit better than that. I mean, I got a bottom line. I got my kids to feed. I got things happening here. How about 15?
Yeah, I mean, I am kind of in a hurry. I got other stuff to do. It's better than I thought. Still higher than Amazon, but I can probably live with it.
All right. So thank you. We just made a deal. Okay. What we just demonstrated to you and what I just demonstrated with the tractor is that how are we taught to negotiate? We were taught to negotiate by we had to win. That's the way my dad taught me to negotiate. I remember very distinctly going to go get a used tractor when I was a kid, about 13, 14, 15 years old, something like that, early teens. I go with my dad to the local John Deere dealer. We get a used tractor, and we spent 2 hours, 2 solid hours in a salesman's office. And that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the salesman smoked. He just chain cigarette after chain cigarette after chain cigarette. This was in the late 60s, early 70s, and it was just a long time. It was forever. And the bottom line is, it was miserable for me because that was really a problem. So how do we? But Dad negotiated for 2 hours for the splitting $100. So we got $100 in 2 hours, and I mean, we had to pay $50 more, and the salesman had to give up $50. But it took 2 hours to get that done. We get back in the truck. We're going home, and this is late 60s, early 70s. But you know what? Dad was really proud of that negotiation because essentially, wages on a farm were about $1, 75 cents to $1, maybe $1.25 an hour. That would have been about it. That was it. That's all you had. I mean, we're talking about the era of 10-cent soda bottles, and the era of 5-cent candy bars, and the era of 35-cent hamburgers. Okay, I mean, we have to remember this is a whole different deal. Inflation hadn't hit anything compared to now. The point is, I get in the truck. I said, Dad, we just wasted 2 hours, but all we got was $50. Was that worth it? He goes, hey, where else were we going to make $25 an hour this afternoon? And that was, but I'm trying to point that out. I'm trying to make a big deal out of this because we have to understand that when we're especially working with our parents or with older aunts and uncles and people in a different generation, how are we all taught to negotiate? We're taught that we had to win. And what we fail to recognize is that will winning work if we have to win with family members, especially if they feel like they lost? How will they feel? How does that make them feel like? And I don't think that's probably the outcome we need, and that's the outcome we should be striving for and trying. So I'm trying to get us to think about what better outcomes would look like. That's what we're trying to do. And interestingly enough, I mean, we probably look at this list on this slide and say, hey, these outcomes are, reaching an agreement. That's a good outcome. Not fighting, good outcome. Some sense of equality or fairness. That's a good outcome. Winning, kind of said that, and you're breaking their bottom line. That's a good outcome if you're going for a used car or used tractor or something like that, but not a good outcome for the family. And interestingly enough, if you look at those commonly implied outcomes of what a good outcome is for certain people, if you look at that list, it'll be different for every person on that list. Some people think that not fighting is a good outcome. Some people will think that winning is a good outcome. Some people will say reaching agreement is a good outcome. But so you have to think that through a little bit before you start, because you have to maybe even have the conversation. What's going to be a good outcome for you, even before you start talking about what the money might be, that sort of thing. And the other thing I would say about this is just simply this: always when you have to come up with a negotiated agreement, and even with family members, always know what your backup position is. The backup position should be, what happens if I don't get to an agreement? What's my best alternative to no agreement? What if I don't have an agreement? What does that look like? And so understand that you always have that fallback position, and always think about what that can look like, because that's an important part of the preparation you need to do to make a good negotiation. As a matter of fact, what's interesting about the Harvard experience, when I was there for the 4 days, they kind of start the workshop off by saying the good, to get to a good outcome on negotiation, there's 3 rules. And we all get our notebooks out, we're all ready to write it down. They go, the 3 rules are prepare, prepare, prepare. And so that would go probably for all parties. Let's prepare for that negotiation a little bit before we just head straight into it. Because if we're not prepared, then we're going to accept an outcome that we wouldn't accept normally. So please think that through and know what you're going to do. So as you think about selling and buying widgets, everyone's motivation may be different. For instance, I was a seller in this case. What if I have lots of inventory and it hasn't been moving and I got to get cash in the barrelhead to pay my bills or get my family fed? Am I going to be motivated to make that $15 deal instead of having to wait for $20 to come along? Yes, I will be. But what if I know that Rebecca's coming for a widget and it's been a hot seller and Rebecca doesn't want to give me 20, I'll probably still sell 2 or 3 this afternoon. Do I have to make any deal with her? Absolutely not. That's the way it is in most retail stores. You don't make a deal at all because you don't have to. There's no motivation to do it, because if you're not, if Rebecca isn't dumb enough to pay $20, there'll be some of the people in later this afternoon, they'll be dumb enough to pay $20. I don't mean dumb. I mean, what I'm trying to say is we just don't tend to negotiate on stuff like that. Now, Rebecca's motivation could be different too. I mean, what if this is the only widget for 100 miles? She needs a widget today, and she's probably going to be willing to pay $20. But what if it's last year's model? Well, maybe she only wants to pay 10, and she won't pay more because this year's model's got the doohickey on it, and she's got to have this year's model. Then she's willing to pay a little bit more. Or what if you advertise it as this year's model with a warranty, and so she's willing to pay 20? I mean, everybody's motivation changes depending on what your background is, what you got going on with you and for you. So just understand, think about that too. And also try and think about, if you're buying, think about the seller's motivation is. If you're selling, think about the buyer's motivation is. I mean, we all know how hot the farm machinery market's been. I mean, if you find a tractor that you've been looking for and you want it, guess what you get to do? You get to pay a lot of money to get that tractor, probably in today's market, at least. Unless something's changed in the last 30 days, I would think that that's probably correct. So, well, what I'm trying to say, especially with families, negotiation should not be about winning. It should be about, how do we create value? How do we create a win-win? We have to think out of the box and bring more stuff into this negotiation process. We have to bring more ideas into it, because there's always a way to get creative and come up with the ways that both parties feel like they've had their needs met and both parties feel like they didn't lose. That's the big thing. Just make sure you didn't lose. So just understand that. I mean, okay, there's a crisis between Ecuador and Peru. And I looked it up this morning. This crisis went on for about 150 years, where they battled over where the border was between the countries of Ecuador and Peru in South America. 150-year skirmish, if you will. They fought over this ground for all those decades and decades and decades. Well, and this is a story that was told to us out at Boston at Harvard for the negotiation deal. One of the Harvard professors told the story and says, I was on a team that taught this young politician from Peru about how to negotiate. And as luck would have it, 4 or 5 years after that Peruvian politician came to Harvard, Cambridge, to get his training, he got elected president of Peru. And he knew that one thing he wanted to do as president is to get this border location thing gone, dissolved, finished. He wanted to get that put away. So he did what Harvard suggested. He would prepare. He actually brought some people from Harvard down to his capital, Peru, to talk about what could be done and to help him prepare. And so then he had the great big summit or conversation with the president from Ecuador. And he starts the conversation by simply saying, say, Mr. President, you've been a president for quite a long time, whatever it was. He was an established, monarchy or whatever they have down there. I'm a brand new president of my country. Tell me what I need to know to be a president of a South American country. What have you found to be helpful? And by doing that, by appreciating what and showing respect for the other party and appreciating and showing good listening skills to the other party. He established this basis, this relationship, this friendliness that went on to settle that dispute. As a matter of fact, I read that in a couple of years they had the dispute all settled and all the arms were put away and they didn't fight anymore. And they one of the parts of the settlement was that they actually set up national parks, like a place to play, like Mahoney Park here in Nebraska, a place to go hang out and play on both sides of the border, right next to each other. So you had national parks on both sides, and so the land was getting utilized, and nobody felt like anybody was getting ahead. It was parkland, and everybody can enjoy that. So okay, let's take that, instead of being at the national or international level, let's take that to the farm. A lot of times we're talking about how to negotiate for the farm and what to do at the farm. And quite honestly, if you haven't listened to me before, just know that I tell stories to illustrate my point. The story I'll tell here is from a young farm family that was on the farm. They went there after grandpa and grandma left. And this young man, his wife, and he had a couple kids out there on the farm, small family. And they were trying to start talking to his parents. Grandparents are gone now, trying to talk to the parents about what do I do to get this farm, because I need it. And it was a small farm, northern Nebraska. I need every acre I can to make this thing work. I cannot not have the acres. I need them badly. And so they talked about that a little bit. And so it turns out that he had only had one brother. The farmer only had one brother. And the one brother was kind of causing trouble. I mean, he didn't want to necessarily give up his right to some of that farm ground. And the mom and dad never lived on a farm. They were always in town. They had off-farm jobs, and they just weren't. It just wasn't their thing. And so he's trying, but they owned the ground, right? Because they got it from their grandparents, got it from their grandpa. And so they had the two boys. And the off-farm boy is acting like he wants some of the farm ground. So they asked the off-farm brother, "Why are you interested in this farm ground?" He says, "I want it because I always hunted there, and I still want to be able to hunt." And I said, well, immediately said, "Okay, how can we create more value?" I said, "Listen, what if your brother got the house in town, all the remaining retirement equities, their insurance money, and their household sale contents and all that stuff, would that be equal to about what the farm's equal to?" And the farmer goes, "Yeah, it kind of would be. Dollar-wise, it'd be about the same." I said, "Okay, so why don't you set that up that you get the farm, he gets everything else instead of the farm, all the other assets of their parents, but you give your brother one more thing, and that is you give him a hunting easement to be able to go out to your farm and hunt during hunting season every year for the rest of his life." And they you could see the light bulb just come on with that couple, because here we have a chance. Here we created more value between the two of us, and we can get through this, get this worked out very well. And you have to always think out of the normal, think about what else could be added to the value. For younger families, maybe you substitute labor or goods for cash. I mean, obviously that was always my generation's way of doing it, to do labor and goods for cash. I think we have to rethink that a little bit and kind of be on top of that and make sure that we understand that that's still a viable option. So I'm just talking about there are ways to create more value that's really important. Now I'm going to show you a video from the original Star Wars movie. Since this is a younger crowd, you probably know the Star Wars movies. This is the first Star Wars movie, and this is the cantina scene where Luke and Obi-Wan go see Han Solo and Chewbacca to get a ride to the Alderaan galaxy. They got to go get that image or that information to Leia, and to be able to fight the bad guys, the Imperials. So watch how this negotiation goes and see if they created any value in this negotiation. Here we go.
Solo, I'm captain of the Millennium Falcon. Chewie here tells me you're looking for passage to the Alderaan system.
Yes, indeed. If it's a fast ship.
Fast ship? You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon?
Should I have?
It's the ship that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs. I've outrun Imperial starships. Not the local bulk cruisers, mind you. I'm talking about the big Carillion
That's on me, sorry.
Ships now. She's fast enough for you, old man. What's the cargo?
Only passengers. Myself, the boy, 2 droids, and no questions asked.
What is it, some kind of local trouble?
Let's just say we'd like to avoid any Imperial entanglements.
Well, that's the real trick, isn't it? And it's going to cost you something extra. 10,000, all in advance.
10,000? I know us buy our own ship for that.
But who's going to fly it, kid? You?
You bet I could. I'm not such a bad pilot myself. I'm not going to sit here and listen.
We can pay you 2,000 now, plus 15 when we reach Alderaan.
17. Okay, you guys got yourselves a ship. We'll leave as soon as you're ready. Docking Bay 94.
94.
And Han Solo looks up to see the Imperial stormtroopers coming to get him, so they had to shoot their way out of the cantina. But did we create more value with that? Did we create more value there? And I would submit, yeah, we did. Instead of getting 10, he got 17. Did he get it right up front? No, he got it later. Did he care? No, because he was Han Solo and he was going to make it, And so even though that trip was arduous and it was full of all kinds of thrills, which is typical for a Star Wars movie, they did make it and he did get paid, but he didn't end up leaving because, well, you'd have to watch the show to figure that all out. But anyway, the point is they created more value and they made the deal and they both felt like they won. The people got their trip and the other guy got paid very, very well for that. Okay. Now, if you haven't figured it out, the only way to create this value and the only way to make this all work out for a negotiation process is to communicate. It's the most important part of the negotiation process. As a matter of fact, I thought about my 4 days at Cambridge, at Harvard, at that workshop, and I would tell you for a great deal of certainty that 75 to 80% of that workshop was on good communication. Nothing else, good communication. So here's what I'm asking you to consider. Consider that you have to seek first to understand before you can be understood. You have to listen. You have to build appreciation, respect, and trust. And you have to prove to the other party you've listened accurately to their side of the story and to their concerns before you can even start negotiation. That's the key point of communication and the key bedrock of making a good negotiation attempt. You have to ask clarifying questions, listen for the answer, listen for the answer, listen for the answer, ask another question. Repeat and ask another question. And you don't try and talk about yourself. So, hey, Rebecca, jump back on and let's talk about this communication thing for a second, okay?
Yeah.
Are you back with me? All right.
Yep, I'm here.
All right. So, Rebecca, just you kind of say whatever you want to. I'm just going to, whatever. All right. So what are you going to do after work today? What's happening with you? What do you got planned?
Yeah, we're actually hosting a Young and Beginning Farmer Conference starting tomorrow. So work doesn't really end until Friday, but we're really excited to welcome a bunch of people who are coming in to network, learn some really great, valuable skills, and it's going to be an awesome event. So we're really looking forward to that.
You know what I'm looking forward to? I'm looking forward to going home and trying to be back to my house by about 5 o'clock tonight, because my wife and I have had volleyball tickets since 2001 for Nebraska Husker volleyball. And I know they're playing Creighton tonight at CHI in Omaha starting at 5 o'clock. And I've already texted the channel number to my wife on our cable TV network so she can have the TV all tuned up and ready to go so we can watch the Huskers try to beat Creighton. And I'm really kind of nervous about it because although they've won every match, they're 5-0 and they haven't lost a set yet. I feel like they're still struggling with how they're going to put this offense together. And they got to figure that out and have good passing and good setting to get this all to work right. And I don't know if they're going to get that done or not. So it makes me very nervous. But the whole point is I'm excited to go see the Huskers play Creighton tonight. All right. So listen, let's review that conversation. Did I really listen to anything Rebecca had to say? No. Why? Because I didn't ask her a question to find out what she was doing. I asked her a question to find out to be able to talk about me. I wanted to talk about me. I didn't care about what she said. So is that good communication? Is that seeking first to understand before you can be understood? No, it was terrible. So Rebecca, we're going to try again. All right. So Rebecca, and you could change your answer or stick with the same answer. So what do you got going on after work today?
Well, I'll keep it the same because it's the truth. So we're hosting a conference for young and beginning producers here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We have a bunch of awesome speakers lined up. We have some keynotes, some breakouts. It's going to be really fun, good food, good networking, and we're just really excited to welcome our conference attendees. It's going to be an awesome turnout.
So how many young and beginning farmers you got coming up to Sioux Falls?
Around 120, 150. So
Oh,
should
that's a
be,
nice crowd.
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
terrific
should be a
crowd.
good crowd.
And so where do you have that at? What's your location?
Yeah, so we're going to be downtown Sioux Falls, right on the riverfront. So beautiful, beautiful scenery, great venue, good food.
I think I was at the conference at that hotel once, possibly, and you can actually walk to Sioux Falls if you want to from there.
Yep, lots of awesome stuff nearby, very walkable. So yeah.
Right, yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So who are you most interested in hearing? Which of the main speakers do you want to hear the most? Who think's got the best message?
I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite, but we do have Coach Stegelmeyer from SDSU. So I think that's going to be a real fan favorite here in the crowd.
Is that SDSU that played Iowa to a 7-3 game last Saturday?
Sounds right.
Yeah, it was a rock fight. Anyway, so the point is, you're gonna have a great conference. You're done when? About noon on Friday then?
Yep, we'll wrap up around noon.
Fantastic. Have a great conference.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Okay. All right. So in the second conversation, did I say anything about me? No. What was I doing? I was asking for the answer, repeating it, or showing that I heard it, and try to ask another clarifying question. So I would learn more. So I would appreciate what the other person is saying. So I would prove to them that I'm listening. We don't get anywhere with any negotiation unless we prove that we've heard what they've said. And the only way to prove that you heard what they've said is either repeat it back to them or ask a question that clarifies what they've said and keep going with that. The only way you have a chance in negotiation is to get to clarifying questions put in place so that you show proper appreciation. So what's going on there? So you have a chance of getting going on what's going on. We make lots of communications mistakes, and I want to point out there's more than this list, since I wish somebody would tell me more what they all are, but there are other communication mistakes, but here's a few that I thought of, and I put them on the list. We ask a question not to find out what the other person says, but to say what I wanted to say. And by the way, that's what I just did with Rebecca. I talked about volleyball instead of talking about what she had going on. And so the interesting anecdotal information there is that, and I kind of make a joke out of this. So the bottom line is, my friends will always ask me about me, and anybody that doesn't ever take time to ask me about me is not really my friend. And for some of them, I still have to talk to them. They happen to be the relatives. So that's a terrible joke, but it's about the truth, unfortunately. But if you have to ask about the other person, instead of just talking about yourself all the time, otherwise you're not a true friend. Making assumptions of what someone else will say before they actually say it, that's always a bad mistake. Thinking about how we will respond while the other person's talking, that's always kind of a mistake. I have to be careful I was in a county extension office for 30 years before I had this job. And you have to think very carefully about that, because there was times where I thought I knew how to respond, and I started thinking about my response, and then they would hit me up with something that I had not anticipated, and I have to change my whole response while I'm talking to them, because I have to listen properly, and so I have to stop and listen first, and then come up with the response after they get done talking, and after I show proper appreciation, and after I ask those clarifying questions. And then the other issue is I specifically struggle with this when it comes to my wife and my children. I try to fix the issues they're describing without being asked. And what's happening there is, you have to see this video to understand what I'm trying to say. Don't try to jump in and fix an issue without being asked. And here's what that looks like. Hang on, I'll pull that up right for you right now. It's a very short video.
It's just, there's all this pressure, And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just.
Don't.
Try to see things my way. Do I have to?
The bottom line, so I hope you enjoyed that. The bottom line about that is just simply, we have to understand that sometimes people just want to complain. Sometimes people just want to vent. Sometimes people just want to bellyache. We have to let that go. Just let that go. Don't take it in internally. Just let them do their thing. Let it hit the other wall. Let it fall. That's not your problem. That's theirs. Just let it go. Don't try and fix it. However, if they say, what do you think I should do? Or what are some of my possible solutions? Then you jump in, obviously. But until you have that opening, until they invited you to say something, just let them vent. Just let them do their thing. And so this is one of the communications mistakes we can make. And it's one that I get caught into because I'm trying to fix stuff for my wife or my children and other people that I work with closely. So just know that can be an issue and try and avoid it. When you're negotiating in the family, there's always emotions involved, and there's emotions involved, especially as we're talking about the items, the contents, the materials, the land, the grandma's yellow pie plate that came over from Germany or wherever, all that sort of thing. So here's some emotions that you need to look out for and make sure you diffuse and get these taken care of so that you can have proper negotiation. Appreciation, I've talked about a lot. All people want to be is appreciated. Are they being listened to? Did you listen to them properly? Did you follow them and ask clarifying questions? That's enough about that. Affiliation. Are we treating that family member as a colleague or as an adversary? And think that through in your mind, because if you're treating it as somebody you have to win against, an adversary, then how are they going to feel? They're going to feel like you're trying to take advantage of them. So please treat the people you have to talk to as colleagues and as family members, not adversaries. Autonomy is are we treating everyone that's able to make decisions? Are we blocking them the ability to make decisions, or are we giving them free reign to make the decisions they can make? Status means, are we treating everyone as full family members or full members of the conversation, or are we treating them as inferior? I just witnessed my mother-in-law passed away. And here about 3 weeks ago, we had her household contents auction. My brother-in-law was the executor of the estate, and the auctioneer treated him with the utmost respect and treated him with full recognition. But he treated my brother-in-law's, my wife and my sister-in-law, the two sisters of the family that's selling the material, he treated them very poorly because he treated them as inferior. It was very obvious to me that he had a status problem with women, and I thought it was ridiculous. I thought he was being dumb. And then what role do you have? And so I guess my point is be careful about that. And then what role do you have? Are you giving everybody a proper role? Are you giving them the actual proper responsibilities, or fulfilled with the role that you have in that situation? Be careful of autonomy, status, and role, because us old white guys, including myself probably included, do a terrible job of giving a proper autonomy, status, and role to women. And we do a terrible job of giving it to the next generation lower, our younger generation, men or women. So the sad thing about that is that young women, we tend to give them two strikes when we're working with them. So just be careful of that. And especially make sure the people that you're working with, the oldest people especially, are doing the right thing there. Difficult people, I want to touch upon them because they are interesting cats to deal with, because especially as old Germans or old Czech or old Polish or old whatever, that older generation, they will typically not want to talk about these difficult subjects at times. They'll want to walk away. They'll never make the first offer. They'll stay silent. They'll stall. They'll change the subject. They'll go on to something else because they don't want to talk about it. They want to try and be pushy, or they'll intimidate if they need to. If they're that mean, they try to act like they have the higher authority, and or they just flat withhold information. They don't tell everybody everything they need to know. And so the difficult people are interesting cats to deal with, because they use those tactics to get away with not having to communicate properly or come up with a good plan for the future. The difficulty might be, the reason they're doing this is because that generation, my generation and my parents' generation, quite honestly, was taught that my business is my business only, and I don't share my business. That's my personal information, so I won't tell other people what I'm thinking. And I don't have to. That's not what I've been taught. I have to just keep my business and my business only. For sure, people my age don't want to give up control. They don't want to think about being in control. And in some cases, some of us just got control. Like, for instance, if my mother-in-law owned the farm ground and I was trying to farm it, when would I have gotten control? On June 2nd, when she passed away, and here I am later in my life, and I would just get control this summer. And really, so I don't want to think about not being in control, because I need to be in control for a while, because I just got the ground clear from my mother-in-law, or whatever it happens to be. I just given that as an example. I don't want to think about death, so I'm not going to talk to you about what happens to my farm next. I'm going to avoid those thoughts, because I don't think about it. And by the way, most farmers or ranchers right now, older ones, my age and older, do not want to think about not farming or ranching. They don't have any plans to retire whatsoever. Most of them don't. So just understand that. And then last, I'm the dumb farmer that stayed on the farm, and so I didn't go to school. I just stayed out here. And so they have this lower opinion of themselves. They shouldn't, but they do sometimes, and they just don't feel appreciated by their family members, because nobody's ever stopped asking them about them necessarily. They never shared a lot, because they don't share, and so they don't feel appreciated. So they don't think they think they could be difficult because of some of these things. There's other things to go on this list, but that's just a beginning list, and it gives you the idea of thinking about it. So there's no magic bullet here, and I can give you these thoughts, and you may try and use them, and they may not work at all. I don't know, but the only way to change a difficult personality is that you cannot just ignore them. You have to increase communication. For that is, make them feel appreciated, make them feel like they're a part of something. Get them to talk about anything else to begin with. Get them to talk about something, so you can have a conversation, so you can have that exchange, ask them clarifying questions. If that doesn't work, and you know what, and the only way to get them to talk, it used to be for 30 years, we could get them to talk about Husker football. Everybody enjoyed Husker football. Now, no one cares. And so you can't go with that one. You probably have to go with the weather. Sorry. Third bullet, find a kingmaker that the king will listen to. In other words, if you talk with somebody that won't talk to you, find out who they will talk to. Maybe that's a friend, maybe it's a clergy, maybe it's your mother-in-law, the wife of the king. Find out who they'll listen to, and get them to talk to them, or their banker, whoever they'll listen to. And then sometimes you give them choices and ask for a preference, rather than give them, hey, what do you think we ought to do about? You say, are we going to do A, B, or C? Just tell me, so I'll start working on it. And just try, and if they don't like that, then they'll stop and say, no, there's a D, here it is. And you have to just work with them off of that. But at least you gave them choices and got them started to talk about it. Those are all important. So in summary, we were all taught how were we taught to communicate? We had to win. How do we set up communication for proper negotiation? Listen. How do we change the mindset to create more value? We have to get to win-win. How do we create the wins, and how do we get creative about coming up with solutions? And then what the emotions, the communications, and dealing with difficult people, and how do we get through those emotions and understand them? That's what I think is a summary of what you need to know to have good communications for farmsteads and farm work and ranch work, and getting on with your life and doing the right thing. Okay, now I got a couple other things I want to mention quick before I run out of time. I started a program called LandLink last year. I'm trying to address two problems. Land seekers don't have access to land that they can farm or ranch. That's the younger people. The older people does not have a succession path, meaning their children are not coming back to the farm or ranch, or they don't have children. And they're wanting to keep their operation as their operation. So I'm trying to let both groups, the land seekers and landowners, register or get put into the system for LandLink. And we're trying to have separate applications for both groups. And the applications are reviewed, and we try and follow up with phone interviews, phone conversations, and we're trying to match land seekers with landowners. and then the landowners decide who they want to interview. I don't have anything to do with that. The landowner decides who they want to talk to. And if you're interested in land links, there's some introductory videos, some other information about that at cap.unl.edu. It's for look for land link. And if you got any questions, make sure you let me know. I'd be glad to help you with that. Right now, I have about 150 land seekers in the system, and I have probably about 10 landowners in the system, maybe not even. So I'm skewed pretty bad, like 15 to 1. So please understand, I could always use more landowners in the system, and there you go. The other thing I'll throw out is that we have a Returning to the Farm workshop. Returning to the Farm is going to be happening here December 9, 10 in person in New York at Holtis Convention Center. There's follow-up webinars in January and February of next year. There's a registration fee. I think we set it at $75 just to cover expenses in New York for the Holtis and for the food. And if you got it, that's December 9, 10. And Returning to the Farm is for multi-generations, 2 or 3 generations to come into one place and sit as a family at a table and listen to some of this stuff I've talked about, but in addition to getting some other specialists in to talk about how to make a good transfer, how to set up a good plan to make sure the older generation gets the younger generation back in successfully, but the older generation has a successful exit if they want an exit. If they don't want an exit, how are we going to make sure that we just make this all congruent and make this all work? They have the funds they need in their older years to cover the health insurance and to cover any trips that they want to go on, and younger people have enough assets and that to make a successful operation continue. So Returning to the Farm workshop is happening December 9, 10. Any questions about that, make sure you let me know about those things. So that was my talk, and I got a couple minutes left. Let's see if there's any questions or not. I don't remember that part. Rebecca, are you gonna?
Yep.
Okay.
We've had a couple come in. So one of them is around that idea of creating more value. So how do you create more value for off-farm heirs when most of the older generation's net worth is tied up in land? All the siblings want some land, but the acres are needed by the on-farm heir for the farm to survive. Any ideas on how you can get creative or what can be done to be fair?
Well, what my generation had to go through is that we had to get to work on the farm and then buy off those other brothers and sisters for their land. And the downside of that right now is that land is so expensive. If I have to buy off, let's say there's 4 kids in the family, and I'm the on-farm kid, and I've got to buy off my brothers and my sisters, brother and 2 sisters, let's say. If I only have 25% equity, and they want their money, I'm out of business. There's no way to make that work in today's land environment, the price. So the thing that we have to do is get the whole family to understand that if mom and dad's objective was to make sure that son or that daughter was on farm, gets to continue the farming operation, if they want to continue that, then we have to create paths for that to happen. And some of those paths may be long-term lease agreements for the other kids. It may be a lease agreement or with an option to buy, first right of refusals, that sort of thing. It may be that you get to lease at 80 or 90% of the UNL survey rate. It may be that you get to purchase at 70% of appraised value. There may be all kinds of little tricks we can do there to create an environment where that on-farm kid has a chance to stay on the farm and keep going, and get the other people paid off. I think one strategy we're missing, maybe that needs to be considered, I think, is buying life insurance. The on-farm kid buying life insurance on his parents. He becomes a beneficiary of that insurance policy when the parents pass, and he uses some of that money to reimburse the other kids for equipment or reimburse the other kids for some of the land and that sort of thing. So I think through the use of life insurance, the use of discounted rental rates, the use of purchase agreements, first right of refusal agreements, those kind of things, I think you can make it work. But you really have to plan that ahead and plan it carefully, because otherwise you put the on-farm kid out of business.
Great. Kind of related to that idea of planning, but do you have any suggestions when you're going into kind of a negotiation or a meeting, like how to set the stage properly? Should it always be in person? Kind of what are some best practices when it comes to planning to have a negotiation or a communication?
Well, when you're working with older people, obviously going in person would be the very, very best way. If you're talking about some, some kind of a family issue, I think that the craziest thing is to make sure that you have everybody represented. Meaning that I think we have to make sure we have a situation where, like for instance, okay, so I met with Grandpa and Grandma. Their one son is coming back to the farm, his wife, the daughter-in-law, and then there was a second brother in that family, but he was down in Kansas City. So we didn't make him drive up to Kansas City for the meeting, but we put him on a cell phone and let him listen in. He was not the farmer, he didn't have to deal with it, but he at least got to listen in and ask good questions. And that's the key. You have to let them ask the questions they want to ask and make sure they're a part of the conversation, so they kind of know what's happening, so that when you make some kind of a deal, and it comes down 3 or 4 years down the road, and that off-farm kid didn't know anything about it, that he's not going, well, wait a minute, what happened here? I wasn't treated equitably because I wasn't a part of the conversation. The big deal there is to make sure they're included in the conversation, especially the younger generations. With the older generations, you have to, in the people in negotiation, you have to be face-to-face, but also include the other generations too, so they have a representation at the table. They may not have much to say, but at least they got to hear the conversation. Sorry, we probably don't have time for much more than that right now.
No, that's okay. Really great advice. I guess you're right. We're running a little bit low on time, so I'll turn it. Do you have one piece of advice you want to leave our listeners with today when it comes to kind of this communication piece and working with family? What's your one takeaway?
Listen, appreciate the other party. Get them to make sure they understand that you're trying to work with them instead of against them. That'll get you further than anything else.
Great. I think that's great advice to close on. So Allan, I want to thank you for joining us today, and thank you in the audience. Great questions and participation. Please do take a moment to complete that quick survey as you exit the webinar. We will be back next month on October 5th. We're going to be talking about hiring farm employees. So that'll be a really great topic. You don't want to miss that one. So until then, take good care, and we hope to see you online soon.